Welcome back to BFR, a channel dedicated to discussing some of my favorite bands, and in this case, some of my least favorite bands. The last video I did was a top 10, or at least 10 separate albums by great bands that I followed my entire life who have absolutely horrible albums. And as I was going through my CD collection and going through, the show itself and thinking like, wow, I missed this one, I missed this one, I missed this one, I figured immediately, I have to do another one of these because there are so many terrible albums out there to discuss. So without further ado, we're going to do 10 more bad albums by some of the greatest bands around. I want to start off with this one. I don't know if you can really see. I don't know what this is. This tin. I'm not sure exactly what this is. If you can't see it, let me just open it up here quick. If you can't see it, it's The Final Frontier, Iron Maiden. Yeah, I know you're gonna disagree with me maybe and say, oh, but what about those Blaze Bayley albums? Yeah, they're terrible. Okay, Blaze Bayley never fit the band. The music changed, got a little longer and more drawn out and more annoying for the most part. Guy couldn't sing in key for the better part of the first album he was on. But I don't expect this from the band that came back with Brave New World in 2000. Wow. I remember hearing El Dorado when it first came out. I've been thinking, okay, it's all right. But like the Talisman, 10 minutes long when the Wild Wind Blows, and 11 minutes long, all these lengthy songs with no substance whatsoever. The first song, Satellite 15, into the title track, The Final Frontier, the Satellite 15 is the same repeated drum and whatever. I don't sit and explain myself. I really don't. It's just a shit album. I'm sorry. They had a couple missteps there for a little while with the new lineup, or the reunited lineup. But this was the biggest misstep they've maybe ever made, apart from Blaze Bayley not knowing how to sing key. This one was a really easy pick for me. From a band called Marillion. Okay, a band that has gone through several important stylistic changes over the years. They were a very prog rock, a la Genesis kind of band in their first 4 albums with their lead singer Fish, who sounds a bit like Peter Gabriel. Music is fantastic. Steve Rothby, their guitar player, is laying down some really just slinky, cool guitar work. By this time, this was 2 albums now after Fish had left. The one before this, Season's End, was actually really good. I think a lot of the ideas for that one were left over from the previous lineup. This is a whole bunch of new songs. I think this was, 1990, 91, somewhere in there. I mean, Splintering Heart's okay. What brings this album down is that this amazing prog band who could write longer songs and really grab you and pull you into a song, they're just writing a bunch of shit. Honestly, it's pop. They're looking for something here that didn't happen because it wasn't popular. It didn't work with the record buying public. It didn't work with the fans. Luckily, after this, they went and did an album called Brave, which was an excellent album. And then even after that, have some amazing albums out. This is not one of them. This is the worst of the bunch, folks. There it is. Avoid like the plague. Again, no surprise. Chameleon, Halloween, 1993. Oh, gee, just looking at some of the albums, like the cuts on this, I start getting twitchy. This album is what you call a working dumpster fire, okay? After the Keeper of the Seven Keys duology, They basically invented or reinvented or created, however you want to look at it, power metal as we know it today. And then they had a couple of years off for, because of a bad recording contract and the band not being promoted in America. And you couldn't find this album in America when I got into Halloween. I had to actually import this. It was a $30 import, and I put it on, and I wanted to smash, well, everything, basically. Everything in the room needed to just go away, because I was so let down by this amazing power metal band that they gave me an album with a bunch of long 8, 9, 10-minute songs with some like psychedelic touches and horns. Crazy Cat is one of the worst songs maybe ever written by any band ever. I mean, it ends with I Believe and Longing, which are both just, it lets their vocalist, Michael Kiske, it lets him really shine vocally, but they're not great. They're not great. And the album was like 70 minutes long, completely lost me by the end. And then, I mean, the bonus track disc, which came out years later after I had spent how much to import the damn thing, a bunch of B-sides and shit, which also should never be heard. They're even worse than the songs on the record itself. Completely forgettable. A real letdown for a band that may be the godfathers of power metal as we know power metal today. I touched on this one in a previous video about Kansas. This is 1983's Drastic Measures. The title is fitting. The album cover is fitting for the recycle bin. I don't know. There are some good songs on here. Going Through the Motions I always enjoyed. Fight Fire with Fire for what it is, I guess, is a cool kind of rock tune. But the band was over. The band was over. Kerry Livgren was getting ready to roll. Dave Hope was getting ready to roll. Nobody, I mean, no violins. Robbie Steinhardt's already long gone. Steve Walsh is gone. It's a very different band. The songwriting is very different. It's just boring. It's a boring stab at pop rock in the early 80s, and nobody cared. I didn't care. I hated it. Legitimately fucking hated it. My favorite band of all time is Queen, okay? I've always been a massive Queen fan, probably to a ridiculous level as far as collecting and researching and finding all those little dribs and drabs of studio material that was never released. This is one of those dribs and drabs that probably shouldn't have been released. 1982's Hot Space. Maybe they missed the boat by a couple months on one side or the other, because it's not a disco album. It's more of a white funk kind of album. There's a lot of horns on here. Not a whole lot of rock. Not a whole lot of that harmony that Queen was known for. I think it inspired Michael Jackson a little bit to eventually record Thriller, but this is not that either. Most of these songs were played on the 82 tour, and they were actually better for it because the horns were gone, the really bad synthesizers were gone. Most of them are still really awful songs. The song Body Language is fucking atrocious, and the video for it's even worse. Put Out the Fire is a cool Brian song. It rocks a little bit. It lets you know that this band still could rock if they wanted to. Under Pressure's tacked on is kind of like a here, have this, because we have nothing else to give you. It was already released as a single. It was a huge hit with David Bowie. They just put that as the last song on here, like Hair. It was already a hit, but have it again. Oh, God, no. No, I'm sorry. I mean, I love Queen. I'm glad they tried to do something different, but they missed the boat in so many ways on this album. And history has not been kind to it, and I'm not being kind to it. Let's move on. Another one that I've seen on many lists, let's get right into it. The Astonishing by Dream Theater. These guys, as far as I'm concerned, are the top of the heap when it comes to progressive, super crazy progressive metal. at least 3 Berkeley kids. Petrucci, Young. I'm not sure where Jordan Rudess came from. Portnoy's gone by now. It's Mike Mangini, who I believe is actually a professor of music at Berkeley. It should be something amazing. I don't know, they were trying to prove something at this point. I don't know. It's a double album. That kills it. The songwriting kills it. It's like 150 minutes of just bland, middle-of-the-road shit. And I understand it's supposed to be listened to as a whole, as one piece of music. Who has 150 minutes, 2.5, who has that amount of time to sit and listen to an album that doesn't do anything? Sorry, that's really all I have on it. It's not a good album. It's not a good album. It's not a good album. I'm going to do these 2 back to back because I think they deserve to be back to back. We're going to start it off with Risk by Megadeth. I believe it was 1999 or 98, somewhere in there. Yeah, it was a risk. I get it. They recorded this because of albums that Metallica had done called Load and Reload, which were not only a risk, but they were fucking garbage. So in some article somewhere, you know, James Hetfield said that Megadeth or Dave Mustaine were unwilling to take a risk like Metallica did. Well, this is the risk they took. It's called Risk for a reason, and it's terrible. I think I forced myself to like Breadline at one point because it was kind of catchy, but there's nothing on here that screams Megadeth or thrash in any way whatsoever. And I'm going to follow that one right up. Not with Load or Reload, because guess what? They're produced well. We're going to go to this dud of all duds. The dudliest of duds. Dudley McDudleyerson, right? Well, whatever that means. 2003's Saint Anger. Yes, I joked about it before. I said it makes me saint angry. It really does. It makes me... any band that had the balls to release an album like this in 2003 and underproduce it to a point where I've actually heard underground bands with better fucking demo tapes than what this sounded like. This multi-million-dollar fucking corporation that is Metallica released an album where they forgot to tune everything, where they can't sing in key, where there are no guitar solos from a thrash metal band. And you hear that. That's the sound of the snare drum. That's the sound of Lars beating on a dead fucking goat. And at this point, beating a dead horse. Because who gives a shit what Metallica sounded like at this point? They let it down so hard. I hate it. I hate this album with a passion that you can't possibly understand. It's garbage. And there are a couple songs in here, I'm not even going to mention them because I just don't give a shit. There are a couple songs that could have been decent songs with good production, some fine-tuning, but they didn't. They didn't want to produce the album for you. They wanted to say, fuck production, let's go back to 1958 and record an album in a barn. Ugh. Trash. This one here, again, I've seen it in a couple other lists. Jethro Tull's 1984 album, Under Wraps. Some have said that it was supposed to be a solo album by Ian Anderson. I don't know if that's true or not. I know A was that, and A actually has some pretty decent songs on it. There are no good songs on here. I think Lap of Luxury might be okay. Jeez. I don't even know. It's overly long. The songs are short. It's not the Tull that you knew. There's really, I mean... And it's Martin Barr and Dave Pegg. I mean, there's the musician. It should be good, but it's not. It fails in every way possible. It is a product of the 80s and needs to stay in the 80s. My last one. This one I joggled around a little bit because there are 2 albums that should have been here. Forbidden. Black Sabbath. Okay? And this actually ties with Never Say Die, the final Ozzy album. in the late 70s. That's also a steaming piece of shit. This is even steamier, and there are a whole lot more flies buzzing around this fucking thing. From the cover and the production on this is awful. I made fun of Metallica, but the production on this is awful. It's absolutely awful. I can't say the production lets the songs down because the songs are also awful. I dug Tony's riff on the Illusion of Power, and then I heard Ice-T come in and start rapping the middle section out. Man, what? Fuck. I think Rusty Angels is actually a decent song, but by the time you get all the way near to the end of this album, you've already checked out. You're already going home. I mean, the album before this is also garbage. What is it? Cross Purposes? I don't even know if nobody even talks about that. That's filthy garbage too. It's a shame. I mean, Tony Martin was great on these later Sabbath albums. Cozy Powell, drummer extraordinaire from Rainbow and his solo stuff, and he played with Brian May right before he died. No, I don't know what the band was going for at this point. I think they were just tossing albums out for contractual obligations or something because they weren't trying to please anybody. Apparently I've already gone through those 10. Maybe I spoke a little too fast, or maybe more time has gone by than I thought. But those are another 10 absolute shitstorm, garbage, horrendous, you see, I can't, they're so bad. Please, if you ever stumbled across this channel and you're here for like my bald spot flashing every now and then, or you're here to hear me stumble over shit and get shit wrong, please just listen to these tens, okay, these top 10 things, because these are shit for a reason. Save your money. Don't buy them physically. Don't buy them on MP3. Don't go to Amazon hunting them down to see if I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. I'm fucking right in the case of these shit albums. Thanks for coming. I'm going to have a stroke any minute now. I got to go do something a little more fun than this. Get me an ice pick. I need a lobotomy. I'll see you next time.